Hey guys, this is Obscurities in Miniature with High Lord Tamberlane, bringing you a look at the Deadly 7 from Warcradle Studios' Wild West Exodus game. As I said before, this is part 2. There should be a link to part 1 down there if you want to see me opening the box and taking a look at what all the constituent parts were like. These were, I believe, the first plastic Posse set that came from Warcradle after their acquisition of the Wild West Exodus game. While they are called the Deadly 7, you'll notice that there's actually 8 models. That's because we got our little Poochie here. So, I'm going to just try to do a quick breakdown. I'm not super familiar with the new version of the rules, so I'm not going to get too much into that, but I would like to take a look at each model individually and talk about the build and all that. So, without further ado, goodbye. And let us take our first model. This is Earl Shepard. Earl Shepard is like the traditional cowboy looking model. You could ignore my terrible gluing job. I have not cleaned these up yet before I paint them. The detail obviously is there. They hold up pretty well compared to the plastics that Outlaw Miniatures had already put out. Lots of nice flashy bling on his jacket there, as he's shouting out to all his adoring fans, I'm sure. I'll have to take a look at his rules and see what he is like. For the most part, he was a pretty simple build. Nothing fancy, nothing flashy, nothing too complicated. Let's see if we can get a look at his face there. Sort of, kind of, yeah. This would be a fun way to paint. I think he's got a mustache there. Next up, we have Brutus. And Brutus is the dog, or what's left of a dog. I'm not sure if there was a dog or if it's just always been a mechanical one. He was the biggest pain in the rear end, trying to figure out just how to put him on that stand, or better yet, just how to put his feet together, period. I'm sure I did something wrong here. That's all right. He's not going to be winning any awards, but he's at least glued on that base. And after we put a little bit of sanding and flocking and some weathering details, I'm sure it'll look fine, so it won't be too big of a deal. But he was kind of a pain. I could not tell which leg was supposed to go where or at what angle. It was really hard to figure that out. Next up is one of my favorite models of the group, and that is Faraday. Faraday is the cigar-chomping Lawbot machinery man. He's just a rootin' tootin' kicking robot cowboy. As you can see, he's stomping his feet. And it's hard to notice in his hands, but he actually is supposed to be taking a drag on a cigarette or a cigar in his hand there. What's interesting is he actually has the Confederate keyword, which is kind of surprising because as far as I know, all of the Lawbots were part of the Union or part of the Law faction. Next up, we have Razors Lee. So he's part of the Celestials faction, which before the whole dystopian wars merging, that was supposed to be all of the Chinese Jianghua triad types that were coming over to the New World, to the West, to be part of all that, the Gold Rush and all that. So he's kind of cool. He's got a pistol, but he's got all of his knives, as his name applies, razors. He is a knife thrower. I'm not sure what's going on with his hand there, if that's actual musculature. It's kind of veiny and ropey. Maybe it's just the texture. I did a terrible job gluing him, but the detail really is nice, and he's going to be fun to try to paint up all those things on. Next up, we have Kodiak. Kodiak is the big dude. What his deal is, I'm not sure, but he reminds me of one of the ogre guys from Relic Knights, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but that's where he is with me. He is quite large compared to the other figures. This is not the first time there's been a rather large and girthy man in the Wild West Exodus game. He has a tainted keyword. Tainted means that he has been messed around with the whole dark energy. I can't remember what it's called in the game now. It's been a while since I read the fluff, but he's a big guy. Probably my favorite of the bunch in terms of building. He was quite easy, nothing too hard, nothing too dramatic. The pieces fit really well together. No problems there. I'm going to slide these dudes out of the way. Next up, we have Alan Knox with the most generic of names, but the biggest of guns in the group. Sadly, I have not drilled the barrel out or cleaned him up, so He's an interesting one. If you take a look at his artwork and on his card, which I just happen to have handy, he's got a gold gun. Not sure what the deal is there, if it's even a gun. I'm thinking grenade launcher, but the figure itself, I just wasn't happy with. I'm not liking how his jacket is flying up in the back. Maybe it's exhaust from the gun after shooting that with its non-existent barrel that I'm going to have to drill out myself. I don't know. Something about it just doesn't make me very excited, other than the fact that I got to clean him up. That's Alan Knox. Next up, we have Adina Vane, who is in a very similar pose to a certain young lady in the movie Aliens. Obviously, she's got her smart gun there with its, I don't know what the chassis frame thing that supports it, smart gun, minigun, whatever you want to call it. Putting that thing together was a pain in the butt. I could not figure out just how exactly to put it together, and I ended up with a leftover piece that I still don't know where it goes on her. And as I fling her all over the screen, I'm not sure still what I'm supposed to do with it. There's a weird piece that I figured was supposed to go like right up in here where the frame for the smart gun thing attaches, but nope, there's no extra spaces, and there's supposed to be quite a large slot. I really don't know where it goes. And I don't think I'm ever going to find out. I'm just going to leave it as is. I think the figure's done enough. And we'll look at the last figure of the group. This is Blackwood. One thing I like about Blackwood is I've painted plenty of the Warrior Nation and the Dark Nation figures from Wild West Exodus, and they don't have a ton of clothing. One thing I really like about this figure is he does actually have quite a bit of clothing and quite a bit of little details all over him. So there's going to be a lot of pops of color. He's going to be a fun one to paint. He also seemed a lot thicker and fuller in size to me than any of the Braves or Warriors that I put together from the Warrior Nation boxes in plastic. They do have a couple of rather large resin figures, and he seems like he probably would stack up pretty well to those. I can't think of their names at the moment. I think one of them might have actually changed. There's the dude in the full headdress with the pair of tomahawks, whose name I can't remember. He's quite a hefty figure, but yeah, Blackwood. You guess he's not as big as Kodiak. Let's see how they stack up. I do have Marshall Boss Reeves here. Not Boss, Base Reeves. Marshall Base, I believe that's the name. Probably one of my favorite figures from the line, but yeah. So you can see, one thing I noticed is that while he is a resin, sorry, I'm getting over a cold here. I don't know, I thought these new plastics were a little bit larger, but it could just be my imagination or their posing. The Marshall doesn't look too out of place, I guess. It could just be that, as I said, I think Blackwood is a little bit taller. So that is our Deadly 7 Posse, and I'm hoping if you saw the first rulebook, I did toss the first video's rulebook off to a family member who hopefully I have enough stuff painted we can finally get in a game, and maybe we can do a battle report on that, because it's been a while since we've actually gotten to play with any of this stuff. So this video is getting a little bit too long-winded for my taste. I'm going to have to let you all go. This has been the Deadly 7 Posse from Wild West Exodus. This is High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities in Miniature, and if you're ever in the mood for something funky or fun to paint, I heartily recommend the Wild West Exodus line. Nice, sturdy plastics. They're not with Malifaux levels of ridiculous tiny parts for the most of the time. And the figures are pretty sturdy and stable, and worst case scenario, you can always use them in a game like Shadows of Brimstone or any of the various tabletop Western games out there. So, take a look if you're interested, and hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Bye.